first episode of the Give Back Girls podcast. I'm Toria McFadden.
And I'm Anita Cunningham. Thanks for checking us out.
This podcast is all about raising awareness of nonprofit organizations and the needs they serve in McLean County, Illinois, where we call home. Anita and I are members of a local group, 100 Women for Good, Bloomington Normal. And through our work with 100 Women, we discovered there was a whole lot of need in our community and a whole lot of people out there filling those needs. But there were so many of both we've never heard of.
I could not agree more, Toria. I've lived in McLean County my entire life, and it blows me away some of the needs that exist right here in my backyard that I didn't even know about. And that's really what brings us here and talking to you. We want to help raise awareness of the needs that exist in our communities, the nonprofits who are here to provide assistance, and how you can help or get engaged.
Typically, we'll bring a nonprofit in and interview them about what they do and who they serve. And for episode 2, we'll be talking to Mindy Smith and Jamie Russell from Brightpoint. But before we really dig in and introduce you to some nonprofits directly, we thought we'd share a little bit more about 100 Women for Good, Bloomington Normal.
And here to help us share more about 100 Women for Good is the founder, Marie Elledge. To help get us started, Marie, can you just share a little bit about what 100 Women for Good, Bloomington Normal is and why you decided to start the organization?
100 Women for Good is a really simple concept. We want to bring 100 women together 3 times a year for an hour. We want 3 nonprofits to present to them, and at the end of that presentation, our members will vote for one nonprofit to receive our collective member donation of $10,000 or more. Our mission statement is, we are a women's community group passionate about making a positive and meaningful impact in McLean County, the community we call home.
Why did you get started, Marie? Can you share that with us?
Yes, I can. So my background has a little bit to do with why I started this nonprofit here in McLean County. Before I was able to spend the majority of my working life with State Farm, I was a social worker. I had the opportunity to practice social work in Florida as well as in Nebraska. And while I was in Nebraska, I got a Partners with Industry grant with the State Farm office there. And to make a long story short, State Farm recruited me. I started working for them and got my philanthropic vibes on by really working through their action network and some different things within the communities that I lived in throughout my movement with State Farm. When I got to Bloomington, I happened to be at an in-home cabbie party, which is women's professional clothing and casual clothing. And I just kind of took a look around the room and realized how much money me and my girlfriends were dropping in a single night. In addition to that, we do an annual shopping trip, and we had spent money on a lot of other things. And I thought, wouldn't this be nice to pool our money and do something that would impact our community? At the same time, I had a friend whose wife had started an organization in Dallas County, Texas, called 100 Women. And I wanted to talk to her a little bit about that because she started it in that county. And within 5 years, they had given about $500,000 back to their local nonprofits. So I met with Crispin Denault at that time, talked to her a little bit about the concept. And really, it just started with a simple idea. She got together some girlfriends, they talked through it, and they created this great organization and eventually grew their membership roster to about 330 women. So I contacted 9 of my girlfriends, 2 of them sitting in this room, Anita and Toria, and we talked through the concept and said, yeah, we can do this. So we went ahead and each recruited 10 additional members to make up our 100, and we had our very first 100 Women for Good Bloomington Normal in-person meeting in March of 2020.
Yes, I remember when we sat at that first core team meeting and how much I appreciated you sharing this concept with me and the rest of us, and kind of us all gelling and kind of coming up with a first meeting agenda and all of that. Can you share what kind of goals you have for 100 Women for Good, and have those goals changed since you started, Marie?
So when we first started 100 Women for Good, I remember sitting in that room and we talked through kind of what I was thinking and the group agreed to, and that was really a couple of things. to raise awareness of nonprofit services available within our community, and also to really build knowledge and understanding about the participants within those nonprofit services and how their lives tend to be much different than maybe the lives of us and the group of our friends. And a third goal then was to really build our membership up past 100 women so that we could continue to grow the amount of money we were collectively giving to nonprofits.
And as we entered those COVID times, with our first meeting being March 2020, I think it was, you guys can remind me, I think it was about 1 week before the world shut down. How did you start thinking about how we needed to change those goals during that time period?
That's a great question, Anita. Like every other organization in the world, we had to look at how we were able to continue moving forward and do that in a virtual world with some separation. So all of our meetings were virtual for the rest of 2020 and all of 2021. And the way our goals as an organization changed was we went from requiring members to donate $100 at each of our 3 meetings throughout the year to really say, look at your personal circumstance, because we know many members or their spouses lost jobs during COVID. And we said, we still want you at the meetings. We still want you to hear and learn about the nonprofits in our community. Donate what you can. And if you can't donate that time, that's okay too. Additionally, we did hold a 4th meeting during the first year of COVID to help address some tech needs that were needed by one of the nonprofits in the community. So think Wi-Fi, things like iPads, so that they could be schooled from home.
And now that we are out of COVID, well, I mean, obviously it's still around, but we're not experiencing the same kind of restrictions that we once were. How do you think about our current goals and how they may have changed now coming out of COVID?
So our current goals haven't changed a whole lot in terms of how we want to build awareness around nonprofits and having our 3 meetings per year. What we have done is we have reinstated the requirement for each of our members to donate $100 to the selected nonprofit at each of those meetings, so a commitment of $300 per year per member. And additionally, we're always looking to grow our organization. While we currently have about 160 people on the roster, we have about 120 that are actively engaged, meaning we give on average between $11,000 and $12,000 per meeting, and we really should be giving around $16,000 per meeting.
Hey, I have one question. I know this doesn't really have anything to do with goals, but since we're on the topic of membership, I often get the question, is there a membership fee? Can you answer that for us, Marie?
There is no membership fee to be a part of 100 Women for Good. And this is because our organization takes in no money directly. So when we select a nonprofit to win our grant for that particular meeting, all of our members donate directly to that nonprofit. No money comes through us to then be given to the nonprofit. And we have a group of women who often generously pay for the food and appetizers at our meeting, and then our members buy their own drinks the evening of the meeting. Or we have local businesses like Crafted who will actually donate the appetizers for our events.
Yeah, I think in general, just the community partnership that we've experienced since we started 100 Women for Good has just been absolutely phenomenal. We have had the opportunity, obviously, to work with many local nonprofits and learn more about them, but also a bunch of local businesses who have been more than willing to donate space, food, beverages, all sorts of audiovisual equipment, all sorts of things that have really been helpful as we've gotten going. All right, let's shift gears a little bit, Marie. And, we always talk about how impactful a story is and how meaningful that is. So can we speak to maybe some data and a story or two that covers what the impact of 100 Women for Good has been on our local community so far?
I can sure do that. So I'll just start with what I like to call the big ticket data point. And that is basically that since we started in March of 2020, this group of phenomenal women has donated $175,300 to McLean County. So that's pretty awesome there. The second thing I want to share is just a story that touches me, and that has to do really with our very first meeting back in March of 2020. We had selected Brightpoint as the Brightpoint Home Visitation Program as the winner of our grant for that very first meeting. And it was to build what they were calling a diaper closet. And that was to have diapers of all sizes available on hand for the home visitors to leverage with their families, because what they were finding was that these families, many of them, working hard but living paycheck to paycheck, would run short on average about 19 diapers a month. That really hit me hard because, my son never ran out of diapers. As with many of us and many of the women in the room that night, everybody was kind of shocked. Like, how can you run out of diapers? And some people thought, well, why aren't they using their WIC assistance or food stamps for that? And that is not what is covered in those two services that are provided. So we went ahead and we funded that diaper closet, and those home visitors were able to use that so that those families don't have something like a small crisis, like running short of diapers, turn into a larger crisis. Because if you run out of diapers, you cannot take your children to daycare. Daycares require that you provide the diapers for your child to be enrolled in that. And if you cannot take your child to daycare, you cannot go to work. If you cannot go to work, you are in danger of not being able to pay the rent, not being able to provide food for your family. And then that then becomes a housing crisis for that family. So Brightpoint really wanted to have an intervention point where they could take that small crisis for that month and avert it so that things did not snowball for those families, so that they could really move from just surviving to thriving. In addition, Brightpoint did go ahead and partner with a Senate sponsor in Illinois to get a bill introduced to the floor that would basically look at administering and providing funds for diaper allowances. That has not yet passed. It is still being looked at, but that is a big, huge impact out of just a group of us women getting together and saying, bring us a program that you currently can't get funded.
Yeah. I don't think I'm overstating things, and you guys can fact check me here, but I don't think I'm overstating to say that first meeting, I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. We were all just so moved by the stories that we heard from Jamie at Brightpoint, which we'll talk more about in our second episode. But it was just so impactful, and I think your story, Marie, really illustrates how small things begin to accumulate to really impact individuals and families. It reminded me of what has been the most impactful donation that we've made for me personally. We donated to a group called Dreams Are Possible, and the program was intended to teach women skills for jobs traditionally held by men. In this case, it was forklift operation. And do I know anything about forklift operation? Absolutely not. But it was really, really an awesome program because not only did they teach them the skill of actually operating that forklift, but they thought about the barriers to why women would not go through some sort of secondary training program or job training program in the first place. They made sure that if somebody had children and they needed childcare, that there was childcare provided while the women were in class. They made sure that they had a bank account and were learning financial literacy skills along the way during that training program, so that by the time they did get a job as a forklift operator, they were fully equipped to just really provide for their family and have just an amazing career. And I get chills every time I think about that program. And I just encourage you to look more about that one. We'll have to bring them on the pod. Toria, is there any program that has been especially impactful for you?
I mean, I just remember the first meeting and how many times I was asked, "Can we just split the money 3 ways?" I mean, how often do we hear that? Which that's not usually our mode of operation. We always have to say no. It's more impactful for the nonprofit by giving them, the whole balance of the money. But I have many impactful moments. I think one that stands out to me is the Western Bloomington Revitalization Project, and specifically Bed Blitz. And this is more of a celebrity one, I will warn you. But Robert Vasquez, I worked with him very closely on this, and was his coach. So we do coach our nonprofits as they make it into the final three, just answering questions about their presentations, and we do dry runs with them as they get ready for their presentations. But the concept is that pre-COVID, they would get together on a chosen Saturday and build 100 beds in a day for those families or children in the area that needed a bed, which seems like a very small need, but it's a huge need all at the same time. And not only would they build beds, but they also offered a mattress and bedding, and even something like a book or a stuffed animal. And with COVID, they ended up doing this very ad hoc. They might get 1 or 2 people in someone's garage to do it. So they won our donation, which was amazing. But then through the power of 100 women, similar to what Marie said with the Senate bill, one of our 100 women contacted the Drew Barrymore show, and next thing you know, Robert's getting a phone call because of her Drew Getter program, and he was zoomed in to her show and was on live television at the end of March, and had an interview. She donated mattresses, bedding, and ended up sending him and his wife on a very belated honeymoon, like 20 years later or something like that, because his anniversary was coming up. Anyway, just, a little celebrity there, but also did even more good for his nonprofit. And just, the power of 100 women, again, speaks volumes. So
I think that just perfectly illustrates just the power of getting people together to do good. And when it comes down to it, that's really what 100 Women for Good, Bloomington Normal, is all about, is creating community to do good for others.
So on that note, Marie, what's next for 100 Women? And where can anyone who might be interested in joining or learning more about 100 Women go for that information?
Yeah, so what's next for 100 Women? We just finished our last meeting for 2024 in September, and that was hosted at Crafted. Our core team will do their planning in January for 2025. So while the exact dates have not been decided on for those meetings, they will be in March, June, and September. We also are planning a member mixer in January. And at that member mixer, we also invite anybody who is interested in learning more about 100 Women to join us. Follow us on Facebook as well as on our website at 100womenforgood, bloomingtonnormal.org. And we will have more information about that probably in December, so that you can get that on your calendars and come and see us.
Thank you so much for joining us, Marie, and a special thank you to the School of Communication at Illinois State University for providing studio, editing, and production services. That about wraps the first episode of the Give Back Girls. We're planning to drop new episodes every month, so we hope you'll subscribe and tune in to future episodes, including our next episode featuring Brightpoint. Until next time, go out, do some good, and give back.